Hey everybody, it's Craig Syracusa, Walk in Faith. I'm honored to be sitting down with Mike Delouis, which I love to pronounce that name, who's from the Brooklyn Diocese. He's a licensed practicing, I know it's not practicing, practitioner. Is that how you say it? Nurse, but also a cantor.
Licensed practical.
Practical, I said it wrong 3 times, but also a cantor at St. Teresa's, and we know each other from the diocese. But Mike has an interesting story. So Mike, if you could just tell us a little bit about your journey so far, I would appreciate that.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for having me. So I'm Mike Delouis, as you said. I'm born and raised here in Brooklyn, New York. My family's from Haiti. Devout Catholic all of my life. Always had a passion for music, also for helping people. And so for 10 years, I was cantoring at St. Saviour's, and now I'm a cantor at St. Teresa of Avila, on top of going to school and being a nurse, so on and so forth. And God's been good to me. That's what I can tell you. God's been really good to me.
That's amazing. I know, and you know, we know each other, like I said, from the diocese. You also work with Monsignor Harrington, who is my boss, so we have a connection. And I love the background, like we spoke. But you know, a couple of things. The reason why I wanted to speak to you was, besides your affiliation with the church, it was also that you contracted the virus, which, you know, you're a 34-year-old man, I think you said, right? So it's sort of like, this isn't so the statistics that, you know, we hear on the news. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you contracted the virus, or how you think you contracted the COVID?
Sure. So like many people, I heard about it, and I was, as a nurse, you know, I tend to think of things in a very scientific way. I said, well, you know, it's overseas. There wasn't a lot of panic. I first heard about it late February. So I said, okay, well, there's not a lot of panic. Everything will be fine. So I was going to the supermarkets, no mask on, so on and so forth. And then we started getting cases. It was small, very small number, and then it started to grow and grow and grow. And I wasn't working at the time, still cantoring at St. Teresa of Avila. And I just started to see more and more people take precautions. And I said, maybe, you know, maybe I need to get some masks. Maybe I should just be more careful. So getting hand sanitizer, getting vitamin C, things like that, because, you know, there's no real method of treatment for this. And so I believe I came into contact with it from going to the supermarket, because I wasn't traveling anywhere else. I was only going to the supermarket and coming home. This is even before the lockdown happened. And I just woke up, in particular, the last week in March, just not feeling myself. Like, you just know interiorly, like, something's not right. And it was like a 5-day period of me just feeling like a general malaise. You know, that's the best way I could say. And I was just feeling more and more tired at night. And finally, that Friday, unfortunately, the date escapes me at the moment, I just woke up feeling like all life had been drained from me. I had a fever. My body kind of ached, and I thought, okay, I'll just take a nap, no problem, right? So I napped for about 2 hours. Again, this was a Friday, thinking maybe it was lack of sleep too. You never know.
Yeah.
And I woke up feeling 10 times worse than I did 2 hours previous. So that's when I decided to get a thermometer, which I didn't have one at home, so I had to go to the pharmacy, get one. And then when I took my temperature, I had a temperature above 100 degrees.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. Since I'm a caretaker for my mother, I decided, let me go to the ERs in one of the local hospitals here. And they tested me, and they saw that I had a fever. And to make a long story short, I was triaged rather quickly, brought into a room. They separated us from trauma to respiratory issues, so on and so forth. And I was told by the doctor, I believe he was an infectious disease doctor, if I'm not mistaken, that more than likely you had the virus. I was unable to be given a test because there were just simply not enough tests to go around. And that was the same for all the hospitals in the area. And they told me to treat it like it was the flu, which I knew I didn't have the flu. And for the next 2.5 weeks, I had to isolate in my room because, again, I'm a caretaker for my mother. And luckily, she has home health aides and everything. But I didn't want to risk her getting it. So it was immense hand hygiene, so on and so forth, and a will to kind of push myself to get better because it was bad. I lost my sense of smell. I lost my sense of taste. Everything.
Why did you go back? I mean, did you ever think about going back to the hospital?
Well, the reason that they didn't give me a test to begin with was because my symptoms weren't severe enough to merit one.
Mm.
So essentially, the only way I would have been given a test is if I had to be admitted for my symptoms, which they believe that for my age, for what I was presenting, even though they could tell that I wasn't feeling well, it wasn't enough for me to keep me in the hospital. And they said that it's better off that you're not here because you actually might get sick.
Oh, wow. So because
Just
you
due to
sort of, I guess, no underlying conditions, they said, okay, you would be better
that
off
is correct.
home. Well, I mean,
That
I
is correct.
have friends, obviously, that contracted the disease, or the virus. We know people that have passed. I mean, and everybody says the same thing. This is not like the flu. It is completely different. It's something they never felt
No.
before. From your experience, I mean, I have asthma. I would have obviously went to the hospital and wanted to stay there because I have breathing problems now. What was it like? Can you tell us what that experience was like, especially at nighttime? Because I know at nighttime it gets worse. What was it like for you?
Yeah. Ooh, it was unimaginable. There were nights where you didn't know where to put yourself. You know what I mean? I'd be lying in bed, supine, like on my back wouldn't feel great. Lying on my side wouldn't feel great. I was uncomfortable. And then on top of that, you're hungry, but you don't want to eat anything. Like you have, it's weird because it's like I would only take one bite of food a day, a
Wow.
bite of food a day, because I just couldn't, I didn't want to eat. I knew my body was hungry. I needed sustenance, but I could not ingest a full meal. There were remedies, old school. I mean, my family's from Haiti, so old school remedies that were being given to me that I would have to force to drink, which were not for the faint of heart. But I couldn't, like, it was hard to take in food. It was hard for me to bathe. Everything took energy, brushing my teeth, trying to comb my very long hair at this point for me. All these things that I had to do on my own because I didn't want to risk anyone else getting sick. And the thing is, there's a loneliness that kind of creeps in because you kind of feel like you're battling this on your own. I was getting phone calls, and I was by friends, family who were deeply concerned. I also sent like a message on Facebook trying to warn people, hey guys, listen, I'm a nurse. I'm a Christian. I got this. Okay, this thing is highly communicable. You want to really be careful out there. Don't go out without a mask, a stroll, nothing, because I got it and I was trying to be as careful as possible, I thought. So it was intense. That's the best way I could tell you. It was really, 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 really intense. I broke into fever 4 times. Sleeping was kind of like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to hear more, but I love the fact that you said that you
Sorry, go ahead.
I love the fact that you said that you were a Christian, because we're not immune to this, regardless if you have a strong faith or not. We still could contract the disease, the virus. I mean, we know of priests and deacons that have contracted and unfortunately have passed. So what was you said about your fever? What was the highest your fever? Was it 103, 104?
No, well, to be honest with you, at its height, I would say that it came close to 102 degrees, I believe. I know that. Again, I wasn't testing myself all the time because you didn't have the energy. I broke into fever about 4 times. And each time I had to rely on my trusty Tylenol, which as a nurse I knew would be the safest bet because I wasn't going to try to do ibuprofen or any of those things. But I definitely had a high fever and a lot of the aches and pains, headache, feeling a little bit fuzzy in the brain. So a lot of different symptoms in that way. I had a cough, but it wasn't the dry cough that a lot of people had. I had more of a productive cough. Everything as a nurse, I don't want to gross anyone out here, but what I was spitting up was not pleasant, but I knew I had to get it out because from what I could see on the news, COVID tends to really attack the lungs in a very severe manner. And a lot of people were passing from pneumonia.
Yeah.
These are the people that had to be intubated, so on and so forth. I even had a family friend who survived this, who's only 2 years older than me. And this left holes in his lungs, which are still healing. So, and he has to sleep with a liter of oxygen per day. So, I mean, it's serious. Yeah.
And the holes in his lungs were caused from the excessive coughing, or is it just from the virus itself?
No, from the virus itself. The virus itself.
So I've heard on TV, this is
And they were fully based on his X-rays. The
what was I mean in terms of, did you hear him, at being a nurse? Did you hear about, in terms of using a respirator
oh no,
actually?
go ahead.
Yeah, there's actually, it's funny because there's like a delay. So we both, I'm noticing, but is there what about in terms of a respirator? Did you hear anything, being a nurse, that it actually has a negative effect on some of the patients?
Well, that was the only thing that was keeping most of them alive at that point. I mean, essentially, a respirator saves your life. Is helping you breathe. Apparently, people who can't fully breathe on their own in a functional and productive manner need respirators. And in a situation like this, when a lot of people need to be treated, so on and so forth, those respirators are going to be very important. You know, I think, of course, if the settings on the respirator aren't properly calibrated, that can cause a lot of serious effects. But to be honest with you, it's what saved a lot of people and allowed a lot of people to come home who, based on the virus and their age and their pre-existing conditions, shouldn't have come home. You know,
Yeah.
so
And
there's a balance that's there.
So when you were home by yourself, because obviously you have a strong faith. You volunteer at the church, you work at the church, you're a nurse. Were there ever times where you started to really just you were concerned about your own life? Did you start to have conversations with God? Did your faith play a big part or a big role during this time?
Uh, my faith is probably single-handedly what really got me through. My faith is single-handedly what really got me through. Because when imagine, you know what I mean? I'm a young person, and I'm a big extrovert. I love to sing. I love to eat, especially eat. I love to do so many different things. And when you're locked in and you're told you can't go out, you can't see your family, you can't hug anybody, you can't shake hands, you can't do this, you can't do that, that's going to have an effect on the human psyche. Mm-hmm. And especially at this particular point, especially when I was sick, the only thing I had to rely on is this.
Wow.
Okay? And the prayers that I had with God and my community, the Forsati Christian Fellowship community, we did a nightly rosary and night prayer, which we still do every night at 9 p.m. That's what I had to rely on. And I did have some conversations because I was never afraid when I got sick. It was always, okay, what is it that I need to do? And if I'm going to pass from this, I need to make sure that my things are in order so that my mother will be okay, so on and so forth. I never quite thought that I would die from it or be that serious to that extent, even though I was feeling really bad and sometimes it was kind of even hard to move out of bed. But I just remember having to rely on prayer and rely on online fellowship and daily mass and my daily rosary more than ever. And of course, I think as a Catholic, as a Christian, we should be doing this daily, which I try to do to the best of my ability. But I mean, it's true when they say that when you're mentally facing times of adversity, that's when, man, you need to rely on God the most. Yeah. And I definitely did, and he's been great to me. He's been great to me because I'm here, I'm healthy, I'm talking to you. Maybe a little bigger than I should be, but by the grace of God, he's been carrying me through, and I'm grateful to him. I'm grateful to him every day.
So when you were at nighttime, especially, was there ever a time when the enemy said to you, you're not going to make it, you'd be whatever, we have these negative thoughts, and even though we have strong faith, the storm comes, the enemy comes, he finds a way of sort of getting to our psyche, getting to our mind, getting to our spirit, and just to say this, you might not make it. Because I know I'll be honest, there were times where especially when I came back from Israel, I had a fever. I don't know what I contracted, but I remember laying in bed and really coming to terms that I might not make it. And I wasn't even that sick, but the enemy, the mind, And I really thought, I said, I might not make it through whatever, illness I had. Were there times where you start to think like this, I might not make it, or I need to really be at peace with this?
Surprisingly, no. No, I really didn't. I really, truly didn't. Why? For me, it was more of a practical. Maybe it's the nursing in me. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the Haitian in me, the strong Caribbean. That was like, I'm like, okay, well, I got this. I'll give you an example. When I went to the ER, okay, they were talking about social distancing, 6 feet apart, so on and so forth. To be honest, there was none of that in the ER. We were on top of each other. Okay, we were on top of each other because there was only so many places that they could put us. Some people had masks on, some people didn't. And so I said, okay, well, I don't know what I have, but if I didn't have it before I came in here, I definitely will have it now. So that's what I thought. I'm like, okay, because, I had to be in a drunken spirit because I couldn't, the human spirit is very resilient, but it's also quite fragile. And I've experienced both extremes. And I couldn't allow myself, especially with the responsibilities that I have in regards to being a caretaker for my mother, in regards to just all the things that I knew that I wanted to do and evangelization, so on and so forth. It wasn't a time for me to collapse. Even though it should have been the time when I should have been like, you know what, God, you take the wheel, you relax, you so on and so forth. And I said, okay, well, I made it up in my mind. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. I'm getting checked out. I have to be practical. At night, I would say it would just be like, Lord, your will be done. Let me do the best that I can, and so on and so forth. And of course, I would speak to family members about it, who would call me. They're like, oh, Mike, stop talking like that. Stop, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I'm like, no, but I have to be practical, because there's a chance, now it's no longer the older population that's really being severely affected. People my age, younger than me, have passed from this. So I have to be prepared for everything. So I didn't necessarily have that conversation with like, oh gosh, am I gonna die? No, it was more like, okay, Lord, if this is what's going to happen, help me best prepare for it in my state, the way that I am now, so that so that my mother will be okay, so that my family members will be okay, so on and so forth. Because there's certain things that were just out of my control.
Wow, that's yeah. I mean, I am very grateful for myself that I was not in that situation. I had a lot of, like I said, spoke to a lot of people, a lot of friends that either contracted the virus, their parents had the virus, passed the virus. It's every time I hear the story, I try to think about how I would react to it. But I mean, the way you react, just your response is just, it's so powerful. I love your spirit. I love the fact that you have such a strong foundation of faith. And now, we were talking before about some of the CDC regulations. When do you think you're going to be able to go back to, whether it's St. Teresa or another parish, and be able to sing and to use your God-given gifts?
That I'm not exactly sure. What I believe is going to happen is that for the time being, everything will be done remotely. Everything will be done remotely, and because even though the numbers have come down, and everybody has their opinions on this, it's still not something that's completely controlled as of yet. So to kind of gather everyone together, so on and so forth, may not be the safest option at the moment, even though I'm desperately missing being able to be at Mass, to receive the sacraments, to go to confession, everything, the Eucharist especially, to be able to cantor. So I don't know. I mean, I've been hearing things about these saying the summertime. I've been hearing things about the fall, but then they're thinking that we might have another surge of this in the fall, so it's pretty uncertain, up in the air. I just say I'm just taking a day at a time. Luckily, I'm grateful for the online masses, the online fellowship that I've been able to participate in, because it's been really helpful. Online adoration has been helpful.
I find myself, especially today's Tuesday. On Wednesday night, I do Bible studies. Every
Yeah.
morning I'm listening to something. On Sunday I'm watching multiple masses. I really love it. I really enjoy it. So what do you think? I mean, how do you think this virus, I mean, locally, because you and I spoke about pastors. I spoke to pastors in other states and, actually people in Canada and other countries, but their experience is very different from, Brooklyn, for instance. Like I live in New Jersey. We are living in an area where there's 10,000 people in the whole town. I mean, I know in my parents' house in Brooklyn, there's 10,000 people on the block. So a
Yeah.
very different experience. So how do you think this pandemic is going to have an effect on, let's just say, the church itself in the Brooklyn diocese? Do you think people are going to immediately come back to church? Are they going to be afraid? How are you going to have to adjust? What opportunities have sort of arisen from this pandemic?
I think, as with everything, I think people will tentatively go back because there's a fear. There's a fear from what I've seen, and unfortunately, it's a big fear. I think a healthy amount of fear is okay and reasonable, but I think it's so strong, especially amongst the older population, um, who mostly will be affected by this. In regards to the health, who are mostly in danger of the effects of this virus. That I don't know if there will be a massive run to the doors,
Mm.
unfortunately, and that's just out of health reasons. I think in regard to the church, it's shown that there has to be more. There's outreach that will have to be done in a new way,
Mhm.
because things are still so uncertain. I just hope that whatever manner in which we are able to congregate again, that we are as healthy as possible, um, and that we just do our best to try to keep each other safe while being able to worship with the Lord. But I think we have to do it safely. I think right now, with what the church is doing remotely with the services and everything, that has been really, 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 really helpful. I could just tell you briefly. I know we're talking about Brooklyn, because there have been the live streams from the cathedral and so on and so forth. But me personally, I've really loved being able to go to churches in other states,
Yeah, yeah.
in other time zones, in France, because I'm Haitian, but I speak French and so on and so forth. So to be able to attend mass in France like I did this past Sunday and really enjoy um, the service and see the worship there and actually hear songs that I haven't heard since I was a young kid, and certain things. So I mean, it's been really, 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 really a beautiful experience as well. So I don't want to take away, as much as I'm missing the physical presence of being with everyone in the church. I just tend to remember that we are the church,
Yes, it's not a
and
building.
it's not a build
Not
exactly. It's not,
walls. Jesus, yeah, it was not a building. I know it. And when you say that, I said that to a priest, and he was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Listen, I mean, it's not a building. I mean, we always talk about, especially like in Williamsburg, we need to bring the church to the people. That's
yes,
what we're doing.
yeah,
I think when life gets back to the new normal, because when people say it's going to go back to normal, it's not. I mean, regardless
okay,
of whether the CDC guidelines or not, we're going to look back and say, how did we ever hug? How did we ever shake hands? How did we ever sit next to somebody? The world is going to change, and that's just the way it is, unfortunately, right? But this time where the churches are using social media, using streaming platforms, we're planting seeds for people that maybe they didn't want to go to church, maybe they didn't feel comfortable going to church, maybe they weren't able to go to church. They're seeing what the community is like now online, and I really feel like this is opening the door and the opportunity for them to want to go to church, because they never experienced it through social media before. Now every church is streaming, but my fear is that when life gets back to the new normal, the churches won't continue to do Bible studies online, won't continue to use social media the same way, because the doors are open. And that's my fear. I really am afraid of that.
well, I think there are a lot of things that have to be reconsidered now. I mean, I think it's important to be, because as human beings, we do need physical interaction, with each other. But I also think that this has been an immense, immense blessing in regards to evangelization, in regards to reaching people that otherwise we wouldn't have reached, because a lot of people are afraid to enter a church. Why? Because even just and I hate to say this because I love the church so much. I'm such a devout Catholic. I love our church. I love our church immensely. But some people who I've had conversations with who are around my age and such, they feel judged.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel like, oh, I'll have time later on. It's not a focus. It's not a priority. It's not so on and so forth. And I think sometimes this makes it easier because there's not the pressure of, oh my gosh, all eyes are on me. You know what I mean? Now you're on your own and you're able to witness that. And sometimes you just have to meet people where they're at. Yeah. As much as I may not even like it, I got to be honest with you. I want those people like, no, you shouldn't get it. But sometimes you have to really meet people where they're at because you don't know what seeds are going to be planted, as you've said, and how God is going to work in that person's life through these platforms. Yeah. Just the other day, especially with the night prayer and rosary that we have each night for Sadi, there are two friends of mine who are, I don't want to say struggling with their faith. They're Catholic. They identify themselves as Catholic, but maybe they've been more nominal than they have been on fire for God, like having it be the center of their life. You know what I mean? It's there, but not the center. And I had some conversations with them, always with mercy and love, and said, hey, I want to invite you to this. This has been going on nightly for this, for all of us who are in this lockdown together, so that we are praying together in solidarity and raising our hearts to the Lord. I think you might like it. So what do you say? And I could see the trepidation. I can hear the nervousness, but I think they joined in general. And I think being invitational, again, because the platforms are there, but unless we're also being invitational too, because you can put things out there. I can make an amazing mac and cheese and fried chicken dinner, okay, for you. And so I sit it on the table. But unless most people, if you invite them to your home and I make the dinner, they're not going to go up to the table and you're like, oh no, please, let's just sit down and have a meal with me, so on and so forth. So it's the same way. I think a lot of times you have to be invitational. And no matter whether it's physical or remote, I just believe where two or three are gathered, he's present. He's there. And I think so just remembering that and kind of keeping this in mind that, okay, well, maybe we can use these platforms to continue our ministry, to continue our evangelization and encourage people, of course, to still come to the church, but also in times that you cannot, hopefully not in absence of receiving the Eucharist, because I still think that's important. That's a central pillar of our faith. That, hey, this is another way that we can reach out to you, and we're opening our doors, we're opening our hearts, and you are welcome, you're loved, and you're not been forgotten.
I love that. I 100% agree with you. I think obviously the church is important. You receive the Eucharist. I used to go to daily mass before this obviously started, and I didn't realize how much I miss it. Going to church every morning, I just, it's something that was just part of my day. Now I go for walks and stuff, but it's something I truly miss. But like you said, we need to meet people where they are and where they're at. And in terms of where they're at, they're on social media. So I used to argue with people and I would say, we're using platforms to reach an audience and using content that's outdated on platforms that don't exist. So how do you want me to reach a teenager, a Gen Z, XY on television or on the newspaper when they're not on those platforms, and then you give them content that's not relevant? You know what they like, you know what they're into, you know what platforms they're on, meet them where they're at. I'm just going to give you a quick example. TikTok, right? And I spoke about this the other day. I use TikTok. I get more people to respond in communication and asking questions on TikTok than Instagram and Facebook. People are looking for content. TikTok, I know people think right away, it's music-based, it's young. You know how many people reach out to me asking me faith-driven questions about God? And I don't even know how to respond sometimes. So the idea, what I'm saying is that the platforms are there, create the content, put it out there, meet them where they're at, plant the seed, and then when life gets back to the new normal, they will be at that church, they will be at that ministry, because we're giving them, they want content, they want to be saved. We just have to give it to them, really.
I think so. I'm messy, and it's true. And I would also appeal to those who are creative in that area, in social media. Like I haven't joined the TikTok world yet, but I've seen many TikTok videos, and it's true. Right now, it's all the rage. It's amazing. It's amazing what can be done. And I would say to those who are creative, who are people of faith and so on and so forth, to please use those platforms, because you don't know that that speech, that song, that poem, that dance, that whatever you're doing that's involving ministry and giving glory to God, what that might do and how many people it may affect. And to bring people to the church, because right now we, like I said, we are the church.
Mm-hmm.
And we are the best evangelizers that we can have, you know. And it's not about the perfection that most people think that we have to do, because all of us are all of us sin, all of us are you know what I mean, we depend on the Lord to save us, his through his mercy that we've been redeemed, his blood. And I would say, please do whatever you can through these platforms, because you don't know that one person, even if it's just one person, you know, like not even getting stuck on the numbers and so on and so forth. Because you're right, you'll get a lot of people responding to TikTok, you'll get a lot of people responding, even to some YouTube videos, which nowadays, you know what I mean, it's here or there, because there's so much that's out there.
Content, yes.
But you don't know what you can do for that one person that really needed to hear it, and what that person may be able to do in regards to saying, hey, I saw this, or hey, I experienced this, hey, look at this, check this out, it's amazing. And, you know, God's will be done in that direction. I hope it continues.
100% agree.
And I say this to myself as well, as someone who loves to evangelize and so on and so forth. I've had to really think about, because I mostly do evangelization on Facebook, but now I've gotten my Instagram in it as well, whether it's honoring, like celebrating the holy days or the feast days, and reaching people that maybe otherwise wouldn't see that on social media.
Exactly.
You know? And I think it's really important.
So
all of us doing our part.
Yes, exactly. We all have God-given gifts. They're all different, whether it's communication, singing, dancing. I know you sing a lot. Whatever it is, we need to use those gifts to evangelize, and there is no KPI in the Holy Spirit. I just had a conversation with a company called Global Media Outreach. They reach 2 billion people. 2 billion people, they spread the gospel. And it's the same thing. They have numbers that we could never reach, but there is no KPI in the Holy Spirit. If you could help one person. So a couple of things I'm just going to just say, if you're using social media, just for people out there are so many different platforms. Do not post the same content in the same way on those platforms. Each platform has a different demographic, a different age, a different attraction. They all need to be different. Don't put one video and think you're going to get reach across the whole thing. TikTok is, like you said, is a wonderful platform to reach people that are not promoting faith. That's what I would say. Facebook, Instagram, but we all need to do our part, just like you're doing your part. This testimony is just, it's so inspiring. Your story is inspiring. I pray that we get to meet sooner or later and work together and evangelize to the best we possibly can. So do you have a website, or is there a way that people can find out about your music or about your ministry?
No. To everything. I have my Facebook page. You can find me, Mike Delouis. I believe my picture is with me with a hat on.
Yeah,
there. I have an Instagram, Mike J. Delouis, which I think I have a couple songs of singing a cappella, as well as one song that I sing at a church. I do have a YouTube page, which is still a work in progress, but it's D as in David, ELO 3934. You can find me on YouTube there. You can see a lot of videos, or just search Mike Delouis and you'll see my face sometimes. Listening certain songs, and you can definitely find me there. And I would also say, Greg, if you don't mind, if I could just say this to people, that God is good. God will get us through this. Do not lose hope. Don't let what you see out there in the news or what you hear from people discourage you, because we have a Lord who doesn't want us to rest on discouragement. He wants to uplift us. He wants to love us. He wants us to love each other. No matter where you stand on a lot of the issues that are going out there in the world, remember, we are a family. We're brothers and sisters in Christ. And the only way we're going to be able to get through this and so many other things that may be problematic in the future for us is with love, compassion, and faith, and doing it together, not separated or apart. It won't do us any good. And God is good all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And if you don't mind, if I could just sing
I don't
the
mind.
last line of this song.
Day. I'm in quarantine. I'm not
No problem. I just want to, if I could just offer this up for everyone who's feeling lonely or down. I just want to offer this song up. Oh Lord, my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the works thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe display. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Standing ovation. Thank you so much, Mike. It's a pleasure really to speak with you, guys. This is our faith. This is a devout Catholic, devout Christian. It's an honor to really sit down with you today. I really appreciate your time. God bless you. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through your words and actions. God bless you.